Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. This is the place where we help mission-driven messengers just like you learn how to build and monetize your personal brand. My name is Rory Vaden, and I'm the co-founder of Brand Builders Group, a Hall of Fame speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. And this show is to help experts learn how to become more wealthy and well-known. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for being here. Let's get started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. AJ Vaden here. Really excited to introduce you guys to Robin Robbins. And she and I are fairly new to knowing each other, but Robin has known my husband and my co-host, Rory Vaden, for a very long time. And he has been singing her praises for years. And so the fact that we get to have her on the show today is really exciting. And before we formally introduce her, I want you guys to know why you should stick around today. And I think one of the things that most of our audience says at some point is, how do you go from, where I am today to that dream company, whether that be a 7-figure, 8-figure, or 9-figure entity? And I think today, the goal is to explore what it takes. What are the hard decisions you have to make? What are the choices you have to decide on along the way to help you go from where you are to where you want to be on this venture, right? This adventure of entrepreneurship. And so Robin is coming on the show today. Let me tell you just a tiny little bit about her. She is the CEO at Technology Marketing Toolkit. And what they do is develop highly effective marketing and sales strategies, very specifically to MSPs and managed service providers, if you don't know what that term is. But I think one of the things that's so amazing is that she has built an incredibly successful business for a very niche audience. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted her to come on today is talk about how do you succeed with less, right? And in this case, a less big audience, right? It is focusing in the specifics. And so without further ado, Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, AJ. I appreciate you so much. I know I've got to have you and Rory come speak to my audience because I've just, I know. So the value you guys bring to people is amazing. So I'm as much a fan of you guys as maybe you are me. I appreciate
We're
that.
super
You guys
fans.
do incredible work.
And I told Robin before we hit record that, Rory has been like, listen, y'all have got to meet each other. I feel like you have the same personality, you got the same hair color. You guys have so much going on. And so I'm really excited to introduce you to the show. And, one of the things I just want to share this quick story because I think this is a really powerful component of what a lot of people struggle with, listening or not. And I asked Robin right before we hit record, hey, I didn't get a call to action, a CTA, for the show notes. Is there any sort of call to action that you want me to give? And she was bold enough to say, well, you know what? Not really. I don't think a lot of your audience are managed service providers. And if you're not an MSP, I don't really want you. Don't
It sounds
clutter
really hurtful when you say it that way.
don't clutter up my lead magnets. But here's why I think that's a really important story to tell. That is not what most people say. I have never once in the history of this show, which has now been running for 6 years with consistent 2 episodes every week, have anyone said, no, I don't have a CTA for you. And I think that's significant because you have extreme clarity on who your avatar is. Right.
Yeah.
And so let's just start there for a second, because I know most likely you didn't start that way on day one. Right. And so
Right.
what was the process? And this is, for everyone listening, this is a conversation in entrepreneurship, but also Robin Robbins and her team, who I know several people at her team really enjoy. Everyone I've met at her team, but they are really some of the best people in the world at doing what they do. And they do it for a whole bunch of people in a really specific and niche way. But also, I think that in addition to entrepreneurship, for everyone who's listening, it's really clarity and courage is, I think, a part of like the theme of this. And so how did you, over the course of 20 years now, determine that this micro niche audience is the one that you wanted to serve? How did that come about?
Yeah, I think, well, let me kind of go all the way back to how I even started in business, because I always describe myself as a very unlikely, uneducated, and reluctant entrepreneur. I didn't start this going, I'm going to build, we're probably going to land somewhere around 44, 45 million this year. I never in a million years thought I'd have that going on with, 130, 140. I lose track of how many employees we're hiring more. I walked into the lunch, it's a true story. I walked into the lunchroom and we have two offices, and there's like someone standing there and I'm like, hi, who are you? Right. Like two people. I mean, I knew who one was. There's like two hires. I don't even know their names. It's so embarrassing. It's terrible. I came home. I was I just wanted to die. But I started out, I got fired from a job, and it was in right after 9/11 happened. I was in sales. I got fired from the job because I refused to sign a contract they wanted me to sign. I was working there for about a year, and they made it contingent on getting a bonus that I had earned. And I took it to an attorney, and he advised me, he's like, I wouldn't sign this. He's like, this is crazy. So I didn't, I got fired. And so I had to replace that income pretty quick. And things were a little weird after 9/11, if you remember. I don't know if we were in a recession or what, but it wasn't like a booming economy, right? So I started just, I've always been good in sales. I've learned sales from early on. So I just started reaching out to people saying, hey, I'm independent, started my own thing, and want to know if you are, looking for somebody who's really good at marketing sales. Like I was very good at writing copy. I learned copywriting mostly from Dan Kennedy, but I've studied copywriting. So I knew how to write copy, and I knew digital marketing pretty well. Back then, digital marketing was like overture because Google wasn't even invented yet. And email marketing, I was really good at that. So I just started reaching out, and I started getting a couple side hustles here or there. A couple people said yes. But I was still actively looking for a job. And then somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 months in, I had enough money coming in that I thought, I might be able to make this work. So I continued to look for a job, and but I started just like doing this consulting thing, and I didn't know what it was. I just, I didn't, like, I had a website. I had to barter for a website. I didn't have enough money to buy a website, so I bartered with, there was a web design company, and I said, hey, they needed help, I think, with like some copywriting, and I said, hey, I'll write copy if you'll design my website. So that was a barter, right? So, I just started out like this. And then at that point, when I said, I think I could do this, my client base consisted of a shipping company, an MRI imaging center. I had a computer training school. I had a self-test software, like a test prep software company. I had, who else? Goodness, it's all over the map. There was, I had a Bijan, who was a spiritual advisor, right? I mean, it was like this eclectic, anybody who could fog a mirror, wave a dollar, I wanted you, right? I mean, it was like, well, I was just trying.
They were breathing. They were good. Yeah.
And that's okay, because I think everybody starts there. You're very scrappy when you start, right? And it's a good thing that you're scrappy. That's how you get things done. But at some point, you got to stop being scrappy, and you got to start being strategic, because otherwise you're just going to end up with a scrap heap. Okay. So I started like thinking, okay, if I'm going to do this, who specifically do I want as my customer? And I started like thinking about niching either in like a service. Like, for example, I tested doing digital pay-per-click lead generation, and getting paid by the lead, and across different. So that was like a specialization, not in a avatar customer, but in a thing, right? And then I started to test in different industries and stuff. And so one of the big breakthroughs that I had is there was a company I had an association with, a company called CompTIA. And I learned strategic partnerships, or JV partnerships, from Jay Abraham. So I started reaching out to people who had big lists and saying, hey, I'm really good lead generation marketing. I mean, my pitch was a little better than this, but saying, I'm really good. How about I do a free webinar for your audience on marketing lead generation? And CompTIA was one of the companies that said yes. And I poured my heart, soul into that, made it the best well, it wasn't even a webinar, it was a teleseminar, because this is, I mean, we forget, it wasn't that long ago. So I did this teleseminar. It worked out really great. And I used that to leverage to say, well, why don't you hire me to do a series for your members on lead generation marketing? And they agreed. So I sold them to pay me $5,000 a month to do this teleseminar. And then I spoke at their event. And what that started to do is that got me into the vertical I'm in today. Now, MSP is funny because people go like, what's an MSP? I got yelled at on Facebook. Oh, surprise, surprise, right? Because I had an ad that said MSPs, it used MSPs in the word, and someone wrote below, like, you shouldn't use acronyms in marketing, dummy. If you're trying to get people, you can't use acronyms. And I'm like, and I wrote back, I said, if you don't know what an MSP is, I don't want you. Like, go away. That's exactly what's supposed to
Not
happen
my
here.
prospect. Yeah.
Yeah. And stop commenting on my ad, because you're going to just drive reaction to stupid people. Because, you know what I mean? The engagements, like, you know what I mean? The engagements beget more, right? So, I come to you to do this. I start getting some customers. At the time, they were called more VAR, value-added reseller. They're basically companies that sell outsourced IT services and support, and they love acronyms in this industry. So MSP is a relatively new term. And I started getting those customers 2, then 3, then 4, then 5 from this paid engagement that I had done, which, by the way, isn't a lesson of itself. Like, I really know how to do strategic partnerships extremely well.
Mm.
And if you can leverage into finding a way to support somebody else's agenda of what they're doing or solve a need for them, associations need engagement. I can provide a lot of engagement because people are very interested in sales and marketing. They were paying me to do this. So that's how I got into this vertical. And there was a point, and that is a true story. So I made a decision. I said, this is it. This is my industry. I'm going to double down on it. I'm going to go all in. And it took me, that was like I got laid off like January of 2002. And by the end of that year, I had incorporated technology marketing toolkit. And then the reason for the name is technology marketing. I wanted that keyword at the time. Having keywords in your URL was like a big deal, and technology marketing was already taken. So I just slapped on toolkit, called it a day. So that's the science behind the name. So anyway, so I get started here, and I started to fire my other customers and say, look, I can't do this anymore. I got to have all my effort and energy on this particular vertical.
Can we pause right there for a second?
Yeah.
Most people don't do that
Yeah.
at all. And I think it would be really helpful to understand, like, one, like, what is it about you or the understanding? I think a lot of you've already said it's you got to go from scrappy to strategic. You did that pretty quickly.
Mhm.
However, most people still struggle today with letting go of the customers that they know they shouldn't be working with because there's some scarcity, right? So, what would be some tips or advice for the person who has a split audience of, these are the people I really want to be working with, these are the people I know I should let go, but I'm not?
I mean, it's a mindset. So it's like, because this true story, like, I still wasn't making a lot of money. I was still teaching fitness classes. I used to teach aerobics classes 2, 3 times a day to pay the rent while I was trying to get the thing going, right? Best shape of my life, had shin splints that were from hell, but I'm serious. It was like, it was real. I mean, this is a real story. I'm not making up. And, I had somebody who, I talked to, and they wanted to hire me as a consultant. They weren't an MSP. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm just not taking anybody who's not an MSP at this time. And they said, oh, you're so full of it, and they mailed me the check anyway. So I mean, here I am, I'm barely making the rent, and I get a check. I'll never forget, it was for $795. That's what I was charging, like, on a monthly basis, right? And they mail me this check. And I look at this check and I think, oh, I could just go another month or whatever. And I was like, nope. I put it back in the envelope. I mailed it back to the person, and I said, sorry, I'm not taking you. And that's a true story. And it wasn't like I had a mentor or a coach. I don't know. I've been in sales, and I just know your company, the health, the profitability, your whole company rides on the who. Who is the customer? And if you have a diseased, dysfunctional, broke, bad, wrong fit customer, your business can never succeed, ever, like, ever. And so, like, like, I had a friend, and I won't mention the name, just because I don't want to make, it's not a bad story. I just don't want to make them feel bad, but they were getting started in information marketing, trying to be a guru and whatnot. And it was an attorney, and she comes to me and she's like, hey, I'm selling I've been selling this course for like, $19.95, whatever, some real cheap price, right? I'm selling this and I'm really struggling to sell. I'm trying to send people. Da, da, da. She's going, I said, stop. I said, the cheapest thing I sell is $2,000. The problem you have is you're wearing yourself out trying to make a $20 sale to somebody who feels like $20 is a lot of money. And that's why you're having all these other problems in your business. Like, go upstream. And it was like a light bulb went on, because so many people teach, oh, we'll just have the tripwire product or offer or service or whatever. And I did that too. And there is a place for it. But I think at the same time, like, as I've grown my business, now today we went from selling like an info product, for $500, $700, to where we sell now 2-year, 3-year memberships. The cheapest being $24,000 total. I mean, $1,000 a month. That's the cheapest. All the way up, to double that. And we sign on a 2-year contract, and we don't do a money back guarantee. So like, that's unheard of. But every time I have stepped up and taken a harder stance on who I take as a customer, the more the business has grown.
Love that.
And it doesn't make sense. A lot, like, you sit there and you go, well, if you offer cheap products, you think you'd get more people. If you had a money back guarantee, you're going to get more customers. And you're right, but you get the wrong ones. You get the ones who aren't serious, the ones that are just going to buy it. And then we used to have a massive, maybe you've seen this, selling information products. We used to have a mass refund issue right after Thanksgiving, because everybody would be like looking around in their sofa for 2 nickels to buy Christmas presents. And they would look on the shelf and they'd see my product there and they go, oh, wait a minute, that's a money back guarantee. And they would call us and say, I want my money back. It doesn't work. Or some of them were honest and just said, I need money for Christmas presents, right? Or I haven't opened the thing, I haven't used it, so I just want to return it. And so those are not the people I want as customers. So there's a balance there. When you're just starting, you don't want to make it too difficult to be your customer, but at the same time, you don't want to hold on to that strategy forever. What gets you started might not sustain you. And you really got to take a look at, who is my customer? And I'm in a vertical, but I'm also just trying to get the top 15, 10% of this industry, because I know 80% is the Pareto principle. 80% are going to be worthless, useless, broke. I mean, if you look at the stats, only 4% of companies, all companies in America, ever break the $1 million mark. Only 4%. So that means, for the most part, 96% are worthless to you, right? I'm talking businesses. And I don't mean worthless as human beings. I mean worthless like from a standpoint of getting a cash check out of them, right? Then only 0.4% ever get beyond the $10 million mark. And so you start to really see you are dealing in tiny, tiny percentages. And the question is, do you want like 100% of the bottom, or do you want just like a 10% of the top of the cream? And so now it takes time, because you got to build a reputation, you got to build a brand, which is what you guys teach. 100%, everything you guys teach is spot on. I think what we're talking about here is an emotional strength, because people get scared. They go, like, I'll tell you one other story. True story. Client, I'm talking about niching, because I do teach this to my clients. I'm like, you got to have a target customer profile, and you've got to make sure you don't get shiny penny syndrome, where everybody comes at you like, oh, there's $1 over here. Oh, there's $5 over here. Oh, because you start to water down and you're not for somebody specifically. So I'm teaching this to an audience, and this cute little couple come up. They're a little, married couple running an MSP, probably under $1 million in revenue, pretty small, nice, sweet people. And they said, Robin, they come to me a break and they're like, intellectually, we know what you're saying is true and right and correct, but we're just scared, because we're trying to, we're barely making it as it is. And if we pick a particular customer, if we niche, then we're going to stop people from doing business with us. And I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about what's been going on in your business. It was like, this was in the fall of last year. And so it was like, I said, tell me, like, this year, tell me about the lead flow. Where are you getting customers? And they kind of like get this really sheepish look on their face, and they look at each other and they go, well, we haven't gotten any customers. And I said, well, who the hell are you trying to keep out then? Who cares? Like, you can't get worse. Right. And they kind of laughed, and they realized, I'm like, you'll find that you actually get more customers when you're for somebody specifically. When I can say, here's who my customer is specifically from a demographic and a psychographic position. I know you teach both of those things, right? So I don't have to explain that to these people, but when you really know, like one of the things that's really important for me is I got to have customers that have true, honest ambition. If they don't have honest ambition to grow, to make more money, to serve more, to build enterprise value in their business, not just make more money, they are not of any use to me because I can't scale that customer. I can make a quick buck on them, but I can't build an asset. I can't build enterprise value of my company if I get the wrong customer.
I love that. And it's so interesting because we have this conversation often with our community as well at Brand Builders Group. And I was actually on a call yesterday. And I literally had this exact same conversation. And I just asked this individual, well, who is your ideal speaking client? Like, if you were to tell me the perfect audience, who would it be? And she was like, well, women, any woman. And then she said, well, no, wait. It could be women, or you know what? Just salespeople, anyone in sales. And then she was like, but really it's just anyone who believes in mental health. And I'm like, women in sales who believe in mental, no, anyone like that. And
Mm,
I was like, so where do you find those people? And she was like, that's just it. It's anyone. It's everyone. And it was like this aha moment. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to help you if it's anyone? Because if it's
right,
anyone, then I can't think of anyone because my brain doesn't work that way. My brain
right.
needs it to be narrowed down and specific so I can actually know what you do, who you do it for, and then maybe I could talk to you. And I think it's a lot of those things that a lot of people that we run into have very similar conversations. I'm sure you do with your clients of going, well, I could do this for anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone who has a business, I could help.
And you can't, right? I'm looking right now. There's another little story, and because I want to get the numbers right. But yeah, so I had a client that she calls me up very, very excited. Runs an MSP that's in New York City. Now, a couple years ago, their New York State implemented a law that's called the SHIELD Act. And the SHIELD Act is a legal requirement for businesses to protect data that they have from cybercrime, ransomware, et cetera. So, for example, you have to have good backups, you have to have proper cybersecurity protocols in place. And she's her and her husband super excited. A lot of my it sounds like I have all women for customers, but I really don't. But she's like super excited and she's like, Robin, we got to create a campaign. And I said, okay, great. Who are we targeting? And she goes, well, all small businesses in New York City or New York State, really. I said, okay, well, you're kind of right outside New York. Can you service people outside of your geographic area? Well, maybe, but not really. So maybe if we just said New York City, I said, okay, well, how many small businesses are in the New York City metropolitan area? And she said, that's why I wanted to look. I did a search in her geographic area where she was. If I just went like a 45-minute to an hour drive from her location, there were 22,000 businesses in that area. And I said, okay, so what's your budget to market to these 22,000? And she says, well, we might be able to swing $1,000. And I laughed and I said, yeah, you can't even that's a fart in a windstorm, darling. No one's going to know you did it but you. If that's all you're spending to get to 22,000, you got to narrow this down because you can't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
It's like a term. You can't boil the ocean. So like we got to have the other part you have to think about is I think Seth Godin uses this term is the smallest viable audience. And what that means is, what's an audience that you could legitimately serve that are the lowest hanging fruit, the highest probability, the right fit, and it's going to be small. And as your business grows and you have more people you can sell to, as you have more resources and finances and stuff like that, you can expand that. Now, like with us, we haven't really expanded our niche. My niche is only MSPs in North America or English speaking countries like Canada, the UK, and Australia. Now, do we have clients everywhere else? Yes, we do. but they find us and they buy, but we don't pursue them. So really our list is only about, there's only about 27,000. I think I just looked at this number. It's like 27,000, 28,000 total in my universe, total. That's not a very big universe, right? And so again, people say to me, well, you know, how do you grow this business if you narrow it down so much? Is because you're hyper specific, because your services that you have price elasticity, meaning you can charge more when you specialize. It's easier to find people. It's easier to get referrals. It's easier to get strategic partners, because when you really know, here's who my people are and where they go, you just put 100% of your efforts there and you get exponential returns versus just spreading it out wide and thin and hoping you hit the right person.
You know, like one of the things that you just said that I think is really valuable is, you know, your name comes up in various conversations. It's anyone we're talking about memberships, technology, recurring revenue comes up in those spaces, which is where we live. And I think one of the things that what enables you to do when you decide, like, this is my niche audience, I don't need tens of thousands, like 27,000 is what you said, right? Most people listening to this couldn't serve 27,000 people if they wanted to. Most couldn't serve 1,000 if they wanted to. Most people are trying to serve dozens, maybe hundreds, but definitely not even in the thousands. But we're trying to reach millions for some reason when we're only trying to really serve dozens or hundreds. But what I heard you saying is that when you go super niche, you start to know everyone in the industry, right? And it's like, and you start to become known in the industry because it's a smaller community, which is thus makes it easier for you to do what you do really well and become known. Was that,
Sure.
is that fair?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have so active members. So we have clients and then we have members that are members of a peer group or a membership. We're we'll cross the 1,500 mark of it's so 1,500 people who are in a membership. Active customers, our industry has gone over under massive M&A, right? So two trends that are going on, a lot of mergers and acquisitions. We lose our best customers because they get bought, unfortunately. I say unfortunately for us, I mean, I'm very happy for them, but they get bought. And so they go away as a customer because they just sold their business, right? So M&A, and then there's been a cropping up of a lot of newbies and they fail very quickly because this industry that we're in has gotten more difficult to be. It's more difficult to be an MSP today than it was 10 years ago, without a doubt. It costs more money. It's more difficult to get customers, everything else. So, you know, we have about 1,500 members in peer groups, which is the largest peer group in our industry. And we have about, I'd say about 6,000 active clients and that have bought a program, have come to a seminar, have done something like that. So that's not a lot. Like you think, I mean, the core of our revenue is coming from 1,500 MSPs. Then we also do sponsorship, which kind of lays on top of that. So we'll do about 10 million of our revenue this year. 10 million is going to be in sponsorship dollars for events that we run. And there's probably a list. Our core sponsors, there's about 150 core sponsors. And then we're always kind of, you know, leveraging, like always trying to find new ones. But, you know, that's not massive. That's not a massive list. That's not a massive number of customers. It's about just being very strategic and smart with what you're offering. And again, like, so if you're a guru, so think about it this way too. You know, you're only going to get a very tiny percentage of an audience to buy, because most people are not interested in growing, making more money. I mean, they're just not. Like, the nature of what we do, which is selling advice, you're wired like you know, AJ, you, me, everybody listening, you guys are wired differently because you're on this. Just the fact that you're listening to this tells me a lot about you, that you're ambitious, that you want to grow, you want to make more money. That excites you. That does not excite the majority of people. I mean, like, I listen to my salespeople make calls. I listen to their calls, and they had this guy on. He's like, I don't know, he's under $1 million in revenue. He's not setting the world on fire. And we're like, hey, we got a program that we can guarantee will help you increase your sales, your profitability, get better customers in door. It's not like guesswork. We've been doing this for 2 decades. We've refined it, perfected it. I mean, like, it works. He's like, you know, I'm good. He's like, I got a couple customers and I feel blessed and I'm good. And so there's a lot of, if you're an advice giver, you got to understand the percentage of people who are even going to buy from you are so small.
Mm.
And the more you try to water down your message to appeal to the bottom 80% who are never going to buy, and if they do buy, it's by accident, they don't ascend, they don't spend more money. Like
They don't even stay. Yeah.
no, that's what I'm saying, that you can't develop them into good customers. And you change everything because you're trying to appeal to too many. And by doing that, you water it down for the ones that you really, really, really want.
I love that. I think this is like some of the most important strategic advice that anyone could hear at any stage of your business, because I know everyone is tempted to this. And you said it earlier, it's like this is more of an emotional dilemma that
100%.
you've got to battle and fight as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, or even as the salesperson, right? Because you can just get diluted at any level at any stage. And that would be like my next question for you is like, how have you kept this ability to stay so focused and so niche as you've grown, where you're not doing the sales calls anymore and you have all of these layers? Like, how have you been able to pass this down so the team that is now selling on behalf of the company is being just as integritous to the quality of the customer as you would be?
Well, you're never, I mean, and that, see, you say it's just as it would be for me. You're not, that's not going to happen. So part of the realization is, when you start hiring people, this whole saying of, oh, well, hire people that are smarter than you, um, and then just get out of, well, look, if, so there's, so like my web designers are smarter than me when it comes to designing a website. I don't even know how to do it. My marketing team who runs all the tech that does the back end when we do webinars and all that, like, I don't know how to do that. They're smarter than me on that stuff, right? But like, you get sales and marketing people, like, it's going to be very, very rare. And I do have some people on my team that are as good or better than me in certain aspects of marketing, right? But the vast majority are not. And that's okay, because they don't need to be as good as you. Now, they have to have integrity. I mean, we have it painted on our wall. The North Star is the attraction, the development, the retention of raving fan customers, right? So that's not some BS that we put on a motivational poster. We really believe it. So everybody's got to be bought into that. They got to be bought into excellence, no drama, hard work, teamwork, all those things. But the reality is, as you grow your business, not every single person is going to be as good as you. And if you can't accept that, you're not going to grow. Okay. So I'll tell you, I was at a mastermind meeting with Joe Polish. You might,
Yeah, Genius Network.
yeah, yeah. I get the claim to fame. I was the one who gave him the idea. I was the first member, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so I don't know if it was like, yeah, I don't know if he called it Genius Network at the time, whatever. I was at a meeting where Joe, and he had a guy, and I don't remember the guy's name. All I remember is he owned about 100 franchise restaurants in like the Arizona area, right? And he was talking about what it takes to scale and grow. And he says, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He says, the problem is when you have one or two restaurants or three or four or five. He said, you're still small enough where you can, run over to the restaurant that has a plumbing leak, and you can start putting towels on the floor, or the bathroom's not clean. You can jump in there and get it cleaned, or you can run behind the cash register and take care of that, or you can, and he says, and that's what drives you nuts, is the ability. You're still small enough where you're trying to keep your hand in everything. He said, when you get to 100 franchises, you cannot do that anymore. You have to depend on people, and you start running the business by the numbers. So you go, I remember him saying something like, okay, so we only had like one sexual harassment lawsuit. So that's good, because that's within the range. And we only food poisoned like 5 people. And that's good, because that's within the acceptable range. No, I'm serious. And everybody was laughing, but to us, it would be horrible. Are you kidding? That would tear it. Like, I don't want that to happen to my employees. I don't want that to happen to my customers. But as you scale a company, the bigger you get, the harder it is to maintain that same level of quality and integrity. Now you fight for it. You fight for it. And the key to it, though, and I'm telling you, it's the key to it is the leaders you then hire, not the employees, but the leaders. Because you are the leader of your team right now, and you are the constraint. A great leader frees up capacity for their people and their department and or their organization to expand. And what happens is as you grow, and this has happened to me multiple times, someone who's really good when you're 20 million is no longer good when you're 40 million. Or somebody who's good when you're at a million is no longer good when you're at 2 million. You have doubled the size of your org. And what happens is we have good people and sometimes we feel very loyal to them, but there's a thing called the Peter principle, and your org outgrows their capacity, or you try to promote them, but
Yeah.
it's beyond their skill set, right? And so some people can grow with you and others can't. Now, if they're good people, you retain them, but you put them in different seats if you can, right? Because great people are very hard to come by, and you want to, that loyalty is important. But I think also to grow an organization, the only way you're going to do it is by hiring great leaders who lead your sales team, who lead your marketing efforts, who lead your operations, who lead your the financial services, the person who leads HR. Like, that is the only way you grow. And as you grow, unfortunately, you're going to have to swap out leaders, because very, very, very few people can stay with you long term. Now, I have a couple, like Jeff Johnson, who works with me. Jeff's president of the company. Jeff's been with me forever. He has stepped up and scaled as we've grown the company. He's matured. He's grown. Nicole, she's matured. She's grown. She's my COO. So there are those people. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but there are a lot of leaders I've hired that you just have to fire them, because a bad leader in an organization can destroy your organization. So to grow, and this was a lesson it took me a long time to learn, because I didn't like hiring people. I don't consider myself a great leader of people. I'm a very good salesperson. I'm a great copywriter. I'm a great marketer. I'm great at strategy, but hiring leaders and running an org is a different skill. And I'm aware of my shortcomings. So I have to hire people that are great at those things, and then step back, not step away, because I'm still very involved. I'm still watching what's going on. I'm looking at the numbers. I see there's this, oh, well, you hire someone, you abdicate. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
You micromanage until you're riding lockstep with them for months, a year, before you can really start to step away and they have earned your trust. This is like, that's another, you can't just hire someone and look the other way and say, give them the 2-part training of good luck and hang in there. It doesn't happen. Because then next thing you know, the whole department's blowing up, and you look and you go, what the hell? We've drifted so far from our vision, from our core values, from our, and now you got real collateral damage. And that's happened to me on several occasions. So I've learned it. And if you're going to grow an org, yeah, you have to decide that you want to grow. And then it's about hiring those leaders on the team that will grow those divisions for you.
No, I love that. As you were talking, I was at a recent mastermind retreat, and Craig Rochelle was one of the speakers, and he's an author, but he's the lead pastor at Life Church, which is now like the largest multi-campus church in the world, I believe. And like one of the things that he said you can have control or you can have growth. You cannot have both. Right. And it's like, there is a part of this, and it's just what you just said. It's like, you never expect that they will do it as good as you or like you. They can be better than you in some areas, and you're better than them in some areas. But this whole idea of you're going to be the one doing all the interviews and all the things, he's like, you can do that and not grow.
I mean, I think you can still have control. I mean, I would disagree. I know what he's saying. His intention is, if I want to grow the sales department, I have to hire a sales leader who can recruit, design the onboarding, do the training, do the daily coaching, do the looking at the list, do the day-to-day stuff to run that org. I cannot do that and be CEO. That's two different, it's two more than full-time jobs. I can't do both. So from that perspective, that kind of control, yes, you have to give up the work of doing these things, but you should still have some control and maintain insights into what's going on. You got to maintain control from the standpoint of the strategy, because someone said to me the other day, they're like, oh, well, are you that kind of person where, where you don't let anyone do anything outside of the ideas that you have? And I said, well, no, I'm open to new ideas, but I believe in you imitate before you innovate. We've got something that's working. I want you to pick the ball up and keep it going so I can step away. That's step one. And then I want to see you grow it. But I think, but saying like, I got to know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Right. If this happened to me years and years ago, I hired a salesperson and I'm telling them, I'm like, hey, here's the training, here's the process, but I didn't really monitor what was going on. And 3 months later, sales are in the toilet. I've got angry phone calls coming. I'm like, what is going on? And I look at what he was doing. He was like emailing people. He's making these promises that there was no, they were like unethical because they're not things that we provide and could get us in legal trouble. My mistake is I let too much control. So
Mhm.
I still think you have to maintain a visual. You got to know what's going on. What you let up is the doing of the phone calls, the doing of the work, but with oversight. And it takes a long time for you to really be able to trust somebody and say, go do it. Right. Even then, I still want to know kind of tell me what you're doing, where, because I still want to know what's going on. It is your responsibility as leader and CEO to know what's going on in your org. You can't hear every conversation. You can't do every job. I get that. But you still need to maintain an understanding because somebody in your billing department could be doing something that could be destroying relationships, putting you in legal trouble, churning customers. And it's just because you say, well, you don't have control, right? But you don't have visuals on it. So I just want to be really clear. I get really crazy when people are just like, well, no, you just hire smarter people than you and get out of their way. It's not exactly how, yes, but
Yeah.
not exactly like that. Yeah.
I'm laughing because I now know when Rory says, "Oh my gosh, y'all are like the same person." I now know why. Like I'm like I'm tickled inside because I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I know what he's talking about." Because I
Yeah.
think there is so much of that's true. It's, and I think one of the things that I hope that you guys are listening, who are listening, one of the things that you hear, and I almost want to reiterate this because I wrote it down as a great reminder, even for our team. It's like you step back, you don't step away, right? And I think that's kind of summing up what you're saying. It's like you have to understand what are the things that you have to relent on and release that someone else can do with your oversight, and what do you always keep control over? And I think that was a really important thing. It's like, I believe, and this is at least my opinion, regardless if you or anyone else agrees, it's like my job as a CEO is to set strategy. That's my role. That's not every CEO's role, but for me, like that is my gifting.
No, that is your job as
That
CEO.
is
Your
my
job
job.
is to say, here's who our customer is. Here's what our services are. Here's what our brand promise is. Here's what our core values are. Here's how we're going to make money in this thing. Like you've got to create your financial model. Here's who we're going to have on the team. Here's who we're not going to have on the team. And then set standards and make sure those standards are met. So you think about like your children. Now, it's not exactly the same because children kind of mature, at an age, employees mature faster, let's say. But, like as your child grows, you want to step back a little bit and let them learn to tie their shoes and let them learn how to cook something. I'm freaking out. Like the rule in my house for my girls, and they're old enough, they're 10 and 14, is they're not allowed to cook anything when we're not there. Cause sometimes like I'll walk the dog, like I'll leave them for a little bit. I walk the dog down the street, come back, right? No cooking of anything if I'm not here, right? So you step back and you have to give them freedom to grow and learn, but you don't like not get involved in their lives. I mean, that's like you still have to maintain control. Who are they hanging out with? What are they eating? What are they reading? What are they watching on digital? Like if you don't maintain control of their phones, you're
Mhm.
going to have a dysfunctional child. So there's this concept of control and it's a bad thing and you're a micromanager. It's like, yeah, I'm going to micromanage you until I can know that you know how to do it and do it well. And I can trust you to make good decisions and trust that you know what to do. That's not to say that they won't make mistakes. It's just a matter of like, it's not fair to your team to throw them into the wild and expect them to somehow know how to produce a result with no leadership, no training, no guidance,
Yeah.
no resources, no you. I mean, it's the biggest complaint I hear. We have marketing managers that come to us in our program or salespeople, And they're like, hey, Robin, can you help me out? What do I do? And I'm like, well, what's your job description? Like, what were you hired to do? No idea. So how are you measured? How do you know you're doing a good job? No idea. I'm like, well, how do you get paid? And they're like, it's like, I'm serious. Like they have someone hired them and they gave them like a stamp of saying, okay, you're in marketing. Here's Robin's program. Go implement it. And
Yeah.
it's just, that's not leadership,
Mhm.
and that's what they're like. Well, I hired a smart marketing person. They should be able to figure it out. That's no, that's stupidity, right? You hire a smart marketing person, you work with them, you walk with them, you coach them, you make sure they understand the DNA of the company and your strategy and your customers and everything else. And then you slowly, like some people get it really quick and you can step back really quick. I have somebody I just hired, name's Kelly, and she is a badass woman. I love her. I'm like, but I'm still like, we ride, we talk every day. We're like, I didn't just abdicate, say, okay, have a good day, figure it out, go at it. She's my chief revenue officer. But it's going to take a year for her to really, I have to be with her because I know the history. I know where the bodies are buried. I know what we've tried in the past that worked and didn't work. And so even somebody who's a very high protein, high level person still needs this CEO leader to be there and walk with them, right? And I know I can step away very quickly because I trust her. I think she's got high integrity. She's got a lot of experience. She's grown things in the past. She's bringing ideas and strategies I haven't thought about. But even then, I don't just go, okay, well, here's your salary and go get it. I still have to maintain a control over what's going on in the org.
Yeah, and I think that's really insightful of even when you make the hire doesn't mean the other person takes over. Like you're going to be with them on that journey through the
Sure.
process. And I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things is like these are like true lessons and high level entrepreneurship. This is the difference between 6 figures to 7 figures, 7 figures to 8 figures, 8 figures to 9 figures, is understanding the balance of some of these things. Now, I've got one last quick question for you, and then our time is almost up. You've been doing this for 20 years, right? Almost same avatar the whole time, super similar business model. I know it's changed and evolved a little bit over the course of time. As you look back over the last 20 years, if there was one lesson as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a leader, however you want to, title that, if there was one lesson that you're like, I don't care if these listeners take away anything else, as long as you hear this, this is what
Mm.
I want you to hear as we're wrapping up.
No pressure. Like, just take the Bible and can you boil it down to a single tweet? Because,
Yeah, that's it.
that's, eternal salvation if you know this one lesson. Yeah. uh, it's so hard because there's so many things that I would say. I think, looking back, I wish I had trusted my gut more
Mm,
and had more confidence in what I thought was right versus being afraid or scared of what people would say, because
mm,
my gut has never been wrong. What that sense you get about a person or a deal or something like that, I just wish I could go back and say, trust your gut, stand your ground. You're doing the right thing. And I think also in that, from that kind of a branch to that is there's very, very few mistakes you can't recover from. So
mm,
even when things look absolutely like the worst, you make a hire that just nearly destroys your company. I had a period in my life, AJ, where it was early on, I had about 7 employees. And in a period of under a month, or I mean, under a year, sorry, I had like 5 or 6 of them turnover. I had to fire one. I had to fire a bunch of them. And I had two. One of them stole my client list and went to a competitor, and there was a lawsuit. And then they sued me for defamation, which was just frivolous. It was just kind of a bargaining chip to get me to stop chasing them. I had another employee who left um and was trashing me and like just flat out lies on social media. And I had another one I found was stealing money from me. I found another one that it just on and on, like that all goes on. I had a high profile client go south on me as well. Where that again, this was very weird. Like this was a very low integrity person in what they did. I'll just leave it at that. So I have this massive turnover. I have this very high profile client going south on me. I found out I had
All in one year.
melanoma.
All in one.
Yes, I
Okay.
found out I had melanoma, which, and then on the end of the tail of that, because that was when I decided I wanted to have kids. I wasn't sure I wanted to have kids. And I said to my husband before I went into surgery, if I come out and I'm okay, because they were concerned. It had metastasized. And I said, I want to have a family. And like literally 3 months afterwards, I get pregnant. I have a miscarriage. This is all happening in like a 9-10 month period, right? And that was like the lowest of low I've ever been. And, I wish I could go back and tell myself, girl, you got this. Like all this is bad, but in the end, it's all going to work out. I promise you. But I couldn't see it at the time. And, I have a renewed faith in God, and I wish I could go back and tell myself, He is your savior and He will protect you, because He was there. I just didn't see Him. Sorry, I get emotional because it's like that important. But
Yeah.
I think it's, for all of you, I think there's nothing that's going to happen that you make a mistake. Like I hired the wrong people. I trusted the wrong client. I made some bad decisions. That's what it was. I mean, all that happened was my fault. I mean, I even went in tanning bed. So the melanoma, who the hell knows, was my fault, right? So it was all like things I had done. But I think just to trust your gut and know that in the end, if you just keep doing the right thing, you work hard, you take care of people, you do what's necessary, not what's expedient, not what's easy, not the shortcuts. If you keep it will work out. And just have that confidence, because you're going to get beat up, you're going to get your butt handed to you multiple times, you're going to make all kinds of mistakes. You're going to get people who rip you off, and it's going to anger you. And I'm telling you, it's not worth it. Like to go, I'll show them, I'll sue them, and then you get embroiled in it. Like I'm telling you guys, like I think the thing for me is just keep doing what you're doing the right thing, and it will work out. But trust your gut more, because there were signs, and I just ignored those signs about the people that I had in my life at the time, and I was kind of afraid to make a stance, or I was afraid to fire them, or I was afraid to say no, I'm not doing that, or I was afraid to say what need to be said. And I think going back, I should have done that more, and then had just had faith in God that it, it it will work out.
You
It will
know
be
what?
okay.
But I bet you're not afraid to do those things anymore.
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, and again, the thing I'm just afraid of now today is I just don't want to hurt people. I've got to be careful, like, because I'm in a position of power and authority with people. And the thing that I worry about now is making sure that I just remember that I can run people over pretty quick, because my mind's going so fast, and I get like I got a lot going on, and I can come across too short, and I forget to say, hey, how are you today? And I forget to say, hey, thank you. Hey, you did a great job there. Because we're going at a million miles an hour, you kind of get focused on the whack-a-mole, where what's on fire and what's wrong and what's broken. And I got to remind myself, there's people around me that I got to just be a little kinder with. And I got to be very hyper aware of it, because that's not the mode that I'm used to. And that's really it. Other than that, if you serve people, I don't focus on competition. I got a ton of it. I got people who copy me. You're all gonna have copy. Yeah, it's all gonna be okay. That's what I just keep doing the right thing. Get smarter. Listen to what AJ and Rory are telling you. They're telling you the right thing. Be around other people who are like them in spirit. And for me, my faith has been super important. I think, for me, and I'll leave you with one other thing, AJ. I'm probably telling you way more than you need, but one of the things when I started my business, I never wanted to be an influencer.
Mm.
Like I never wanted to be the one on stage, the guru. Like I did it because I saw it as a means to selling stuff, not as a means because I like to be on stage. And I mean this sincerely. If I was never on stage again, wouldn't hurt my feelings. I don't mind doing it, but it's not like my favorite thing in the world, right? I'm kind of neutral about it. In fact, I'd rather be behind the scenes than on stage if I had my preference, right? But so much of your business gets wrapped up in your ego. because you go, well, hey, I don't have 1 million followers on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all these things. And we see these people who are doing amazing. I'm not taking away from them. I mean, they have these millions of views for a reason. They have incredible messages and stuff. And I don't mean this in a jealous way. What I mean it is you can get caught up in that and feel like, what if I'm not relevant anymore? What am I going to do if this thing doesn't work out? Like I got to be more popular. I got to get more likes. I got to get more clicks. I got to get more. If I don't, I'm a failure. Right. And I started having those feelings quite a bit. And it made me nervous because I felt like the business kind of rose on that. Right. And again, I think my faith in God, just coming back to that is an earthly prize that, you know what, I don't need to get wrapped up in that. I just need to take care of people. I need to work hard. I need to do the right thing. And it's okay if I'm not the most popular YouTuber or Facebook person or whatever, and not to get wrapped up in that too much, because I can tell you this, I know a lot of very wealthy, successful people that you all never heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of billionaires and multimillionaires. None of you have ever heard of running an IT business, running a software company that you guys, if I said it, you would never know who the heck I'm talking about, right? So it's possible to run a great business without having all these fans, followers. Now, I'm not, please don't misunderstand me. They're important.
Totally.
And
I totally agree with you though.
okay, so I'm just saying, like, for your spirit, I just don't get too caught up where you feel like you're a failure if you're not as popular. Because you look at my YouTube channel, you look at my Facebook, you're like, I get like 3 people liking it, and that's it.
I mean,
I'm
I'm really not all that different. I mean, we run a personal brand strategy firm, and I'm like, well, don't go look at mine because that's like, I've never had roughly more than what I have right now. It's 10,000 followers. And like one of my personal mantras is that you do not have to have millions of followers to make millions of dollars. And you do not have to make millions of dollars to make a massive and eternal impact. Right. And it's like,
100%. That's what I'm saying, what you're saying. Yep, 100%.
and and I love what you said. And it's like, I've been reading a lot through the Old Testament right now, and we'll kind of like, I know, wrap in this, but it's like one of the things that I've been holding on to is like, just like gold, we are refined through the fire, right? And it's like nobody looks back and says, "Oh my gosh, that success, that victory, it defined me. I learned everything I know, and I had this victorious thing that happened." It's like nobody says that. They look back and go like, that valley, that challenge, that horrendous year, that awful relationship, that bankruptcy thing. It's like we grow through the crap, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But we just got to persist.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fertilizer of life, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? You just said it.
And knowing that, it's like, and I love what you said. It's like, man, if you just don't give up, if you
Yeah,
just
I mean,
don't
look,
give
it's
up.
value. Just get more. I think it was Ed Milet said this. We just had Ed at and I know he's a client of yours
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, and he said, don't get your ego wrapped up in your results. Get it wrapped up in your intention. And I love that because that's what I'm really. If your intention is to do good in the world and to help others, and get wrapped up in doing that, and providing real value to people. And the other thing is learn business too, guys. The other thing is, if I could go back and say to myself, you can build an actual, like, a company with actual enterprise value that is sellable, not just a company that makes money. Because in the beginning, I'll tell you, I wasted I'd say the first 12 years. I just was making money, and it was more money than I ever made. And I thought, this is great, and as I started to evolve and grow my business, I started to realize, hey, I had to learn how to run a legit business, not this kind of lifestyle thing. And if you want to run a lifestyle thing, that's up to you. I'm just saying, like, and then, as like in my industry, because mergers and acquisitions is such a big deal, I had to bring in several what I call experts and residents on M&A and enterprise value and financials. And so I started surrounding myself with people that are not like branding and marketing, but that are like, here's how you read a P&L. Here's how you look at the financials in your business to know if you're within certain percentages and ranges that make sense. And I mean, like, things that like most of us are like, oh, I hate that, but it's really important too. And I think if I would have professionalized my org a lot sooner with good leadership, good metrics, financial reporting, like understanding that, I would have been so much better off. I would have made so much more money. But I'm a marketing and salesperson, so that was all like ick to me, And so, I was like, financials, like, just just go sell something else. If I just sell more stuff, there'll be plenty of net, right? So, I think I should have done that sooner, but anyway, that's it.
Oh, this is so good. I mean, I literally took 3 pages of notes while we were talking of like these just like great reminders. And, honestly, what I love too is like, there's just two quick things I just want to highlight as we go is the first thing would be that step back, not step away, right? That is that your job is to step back, not always step away. I think it was a great reminder for anyone who's like, I just want this off my plate. Right.
Yeah.
I hear that all the- I just want this off my plate. It's like maybe reevaluate what you're saying there. A second thing is imitate before you innovate. Right? I think that's so good. It's like, yeah, bring in new people who can think different or think bigger, but first, imitate before you innovate. I think that was so good. And then the third thing that I wrote down, and you said it in the very early, it's like you got to know from when you're going scrappy to strategic, right? And I think some people stay in scrappy a little too long. And at some point, you got to like formalize. Robin, this was so good, so valuable. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. Y'all, this was amazing. Save it, go back, listen to it on repeat, share it with your leaders, share it with your team.
Share
This
it
is
with your MSP. If you outsource your IT support, that's who I want. Woo woo.
that's
There's your
right.
call to
Know
action.
who your audience is, right? That's what you need to know here.
They probably don't even have one, so that's fine. But
But, I think this is one of those conversations that really it's like this is a conversation 20 years in the making. And if you guys haven't realized, like you just got a master class in entrepreneurship, I would encourage you to go back and listen to it. And then also stay tuned for the recap episode that I will do next. Robin, thank you so much. Everyone else, we will see you next time on the Influential Personal Brand.